freedom, pass from hand to yearning hand, and the vision of our fathers spread hope throughout this land, as the dreams some fought and died for in my heart becomes my own. I will strive to keep her promise, America, my home. America, America, may God bless America, and freedom reign across America, my home. From the shorelines to the prairies, to the cities great and small, we have reaped the fruits of justice and liberty for all.
So with deep appreciation for the blessings of freedom that we know in this great and wonderful land of ours, I'm Dr. George Simon, welcoming you to another edition of Character Matters. This is the program where we talk about what I consider to be the defining issue of our time, the character crisis that we face, and the effect that the character crisis has had on every aspect of our lives. There's nothing more important than a person's character, because what a person holds in their heart and how they discipline themselves for the sake of themselves and for the sake of others makes all the difference in the world as to how they will relate to their family, to their co-workers, to their communities. And we're witnessing, once again, a great tragedy. Another mass shooting, ideologically motivated. A person with strong beliefs. I, by the way, am a person with strong beliefs. But strong beliefs alone are not responsible for despicable actions. It takes a certain quality of character to believe that one has the right to subjugate and punish others who may not see things the same way you do. It's a matter of character. And I'm sad today because, once again, I hear so many people pointing or saying so many things and witness so many people pointing fingers in so many places, except squarely where we need to be looking. We will not be safe. We will not be safe until the hearts and minds of individuals are converted. It's not a matter of banning guns. I answered a friend's post on Facebook about that just today, someone who was also lamenting the tragic shootings early this morning in Orlando, and thinking it was high time, therefore, that we ban all guns, that we come to our senses, that if we were just to be rid of those things, that we'd be safe from this kind of senseless behavior. But the fact that it's far easier to craft a pipe bomb or a fertilizer bomb than it is in many places to purchase a firearm. And you could do a lot more damage, as the Boston bomber clearly showed us. It's what's in the hearts and minds of people that we need to do something about. And until we face that issue head on, we will not be safe. And we will not be great. It's so sad that these things keep happening. But it's even sadder that when they happen, it's sadder to me that when they happen, it does not serve as an occasion for us to look really closely at what the real roots of our problem are. Character matters. And the person who perpetrated this crime was well known to those around him to be harboring hate in his heart. And not only that, to be harboring attitudes about entitlement to do dastardly things about it. So, unfortunately, it's a matter of character, but a matter of character that has not been adequately addressed. And I'm sad that it may not be. I'm sad that we are not looking in the right places. If only those who knew this person had confronted the real issue, which was who he was as a person, challenged his distorted beliefs, challenged his attitudes of entitlement, challenged his sick thinking that it was his right to make a dramatic statement. If only that, perhaps we could have been spared this tragedy. I'm so sorry. So sorry for the families and friends of the victims. My heart goes out to them. But I'm sorrier still that we haven't come to the point yet where we're willing to tackle the issue head on. In the 12-step programs, the saying goes that you can't really address a problem till you take that first step and admit what it is. It's what goes on in our hearts and minds that has the capacity to destroy us. And we must confront this directly. I'm not sure if or when we ever will. But I'm going to keep sounding the drumbeat because, as I mentioned before, I have some strong feelings too. I have some very strong beliefs. I don't feel entitled to use any means necessary to either shock or terrorize people into sharing my beliefs and my values and my principles. Rather, I spend Sunday evenings with you on this program. I blog, I write, and in every way I can, try to carry the message about who it is that we can be and how we can come to be that way. And if only this was the focus of families and friends of these other individuals, and they are out there. There are other individuals. This shooter, this terror suspect, this terrorist, domestic terrorist, ideologically motivated. There are more of them, and they are known to their families and friends. Their way of thinking is known. Their attitudes are known. And they must be confronted directly. And they must be confronted in a benign and loving and caring way, but they must be confronted. I'll be interested in your thoughts on the subject as well. I have more to say on this and more to say about the upcoming workshops I'll be doing and also about the article posted this past Friday on my manipulative-people.com blog. But if you want to join the conversation, I'd love to hear what you have to say. Maybe you have a question to ask. Maybe you have a sentiment you want to share on the events of the weekend. Maybe you just have some other issue you'd like to discuss. In any case, give us a call at 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. I'll be happy to take your call. You know, religion can be a vehicle by which people come to an incredible degree of conscientiousness about the greater truths in life. It can be a pathway to a greater degree of personal righteousness, character, care and concern for the human condition, for the survival of our planet, for the survival of the human race, for the advancement of health, happiness, and prosperity for all. But ideologies can turn deadly. And it has little to do with how strongly someone feels about an issue. I hear that complaint all the time too. I hear the comment that it's all about the extreme view, that it's all about taking certain things too literally or too seriously. I hear also the opinion that it's all about taking a view that's too much of a departure from the generally accepted norm in a culture. But it really has nothing to do. These acts of horror and terror, much like what occurs at the relationship level in abusive and exploitive relationships. It has nothing to do, really, with the strength of conviction about anything. It has to do with the sense of entitlement to do whatever it takes to subjugate those who disagree or who are different. It has to do with intolerance. And it has to do with the way a person decides that they have a right to advance their cause. And of course, there are some that want to strike back, emulating the very behavior of these terror-minded individuals. Thinking that through might and through oppression, that they can successfully dominate, subjugate, and bring to surrender others. Well, how's that worked, for example, in the Middle East? We had an example just a few days ago in Tel Aviv. The idea has always been, or has been for a while, that if you make it really, really tough on people, you clamp down with an iron fist, you build walls, you take extraordinary security measures, and that you punish people indiscriminately, everybody, for the bad actions of a few, that sooner or later an unruly group will become subjugated. They will give up the fight for what they think is right, and you'll be safe. This is a crazy, misguided notion. It's an illusion. It's a delusion, to be more accurate. We will only make ourselves safer when we do our best to benignly confront and deal with those impure intentions of the human heart that define our character. People of character have reckoned with those things. They've taken an honest and serious look at themselves, who they are at the animal level, and who they want to be, not only for their sake, but for the greater good. And we're not doing a good enough job of stressing how important that is. And we're not doing a good enough job of benignly confronting those among us who evidence the kind of character that affords them permission to do whatever they think they have to do to bring others around to their way of thinking. I sure hope that we learn some important lessons, but I have my doubts. I don't know what it will take for us to truly come to our senses. One thing I know for sure, and here I'm showing my conviction again. One thing I know and hold dear in my heart that I'm strongly convicted about is that wherever the answers lie, we will not find them by pointing the finger everywhere else but where the problem lies. The problems we face, all of them, all of our problems, from the financial difficulties that we have to the larger scale economic issues that we have, to the problem that we have with incarcerations, mass incarcerations, to the tensions that we have around the globe, they're all related to this character issue. Case in point. Let me just illustrate a little bit. Right now, despite the cooking of the books and the fudging of all the numbers, and despite the small, minuscule improvements that there have been in our economic situation, in some sectors of our population, the unemployment rate is an unacceptably high, 50% or greater. This is a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. And why is that? Why is it? You can point to a lot of reasons, but almost every single one of them involves character. From those greedy individuals who put profits over people and who outsource to the cheapest labor sources they can, to those individuals who find it more acceptable and more profitable to collect phony disability insurance as opposed to doing menial tasks for minimum wage, and maybe even having to work 2 or 3 jobs to subsist. But it would still be more honorable. It's on both sides. It's not a political issue. There are character issues on both sides of the equation. Something seriously evil has happened to us. We've become desensitized. We no longer expect character, nor are we particularly shocked when we see egregious displays of horrendous character. This political season has been evidence of that right from the beginning. Right from the beginning. I never thought that I'd live to see the day that individuals of such truly impaired character would be held up as standard bearers and potential representatives of our people. It's sad. And here's the worst thing about it. It's not just that such despicable characters exist. Actually, they have always existed, and they have always gravitated toward power because that's what they crave. I've said this many times in my writings. The old saying that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely has some merit, but it's not accurate. The fact is that people of impaired character crave power anyway, for its own sake. They always have. And because they crave power for its own sake, whenever they get it, you can count on the fact that they will abuse it. You can count on that fact. It came out just last week, an ABC News report about this appointment that one of the presidential candidates made basically as a payback for contributions that seriously jeopardized the security of the country. This is a character matter. It's not a political matter. It's a character matter. And what I was saying earlier is that it's not so much that despicable characters exist. They always have, and they always will, perhaps. Here's the more insidious thing as I see it. We've become accepting of it. We're no longer shocked by it. We're completely desensitized. And even more insidious than that is that people don't care. People don't care. As long as their representatives do their bidding, serve their own particular agenda, or at least say they will, pander successfully, as long as that happens, they will not only not hold them to account, but they will also afford them power by voting them into power. Character doesn't matter enough to them. If it did, we would have a better crop to choose from. If enough people cared enough about character to make it a condition for office holding, these power-hungry, corrupt folks would not be seeking power because they would know they wouldn't have a chance. Now, in last Friday's post on my blog on manipulative-people.com, I posted on toxic self-love. It's part of my series of articles on what I call the third commandment of character development. And, it is amazing to me how after all these years, of so-called research, that we have gotten it so wrong so much of the time when it comes to matters of self-esteem and developing a healthy self-concept. For years, the helping professions taught us that it was impossible for a person to have too much self-esteem. They also told us that it was impossible to praise our children enough. They also taught us that developing healthy self-esteem was the key to character. But it's the balance that's key, a balanced sense of self-worth. That's the key. And a person can indeed love themselves too much and in the wrong way and for the wrong things. Such is the case with narcissism. In my article last Friday, I talk about the origin of the term narcissism, from the Greek myth about Narcissus. You see, Narcissus, like so many narcissists among us, he was very aware of all he had going for him. He had the brains, he had the charm, he had the looks, and he knew all that. He knew what his natural endowments and his gifts were. And according to the myth, a nymph was trying to curry his favor, maybe even seduce him, was making a play for him. But Narcissus, he looked in a clear pond and upon seeing his reflection, fell in love with his own image. And not only that, he rebuffed the advances of the nymph. And this is the way it is with narcissism. The narcissistic individual doesn't need anyone else, or at least that's the way they look at it. That's what they tell themselves. Because all they really need lies within themselves. As long as they have them, they're happy. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't have some utilitarian needs of other people. For example, to use, perhaps, another person as a sexual object, or to use another person as a victory trophy, say another person that they find very physically appealing, and therefore would be good arm candy, so to speak. But that doesn't really mean that they need them in a healthy way, like most of us need each other for support, for true affiliation, for mutual regard. So, narcissism is, by definition, pathological self-love. And it breeds a sense of entitlement. Because narcissistic individuals see themselves as inherently superior. Their way of seeing things, their way of doing things, in their mind, is superior to others. And they hold other individuals in disdain who don't share the same beliefs, attitudes, who aren't the same in character as they are. They see these individuals as weak, as inferior, and as somewhat expendable. They also feel entitled to prey on such individuals, to exploit them, to use and abuse them. And these are the same kinds of attitudes, these same kinds of unhealthy character traits present in the minds of these ideologues who really believe that their way, their beliefs, their values are superior. And therefore they hold all those who don't conform in disdain. And they feel entitled to exploit, abuse, or even dispose of them. These character traits show up early. They don't just come out of nowhere. And I've heard this term, radicalization, like there's some kind of instant brainwashing process that can happen in just a few months. That a basically decent person, a really solid, decent character, can somehow be magically transformed I'm sure that with enough terror and with enough brainwashing and with enough coercion, this can indeed happen, especially with the very young and the very vulnerable. For example, these young children who are abducted and then told that if they don't comply with every dictate of their enslaving masters, and that they don't do the bidding of their masters, that their families will be in jeopardy, that they'll be murdered or tortured. And it's understandable why even a loving heart, afraid for their family's welfare, might begrudgingly comply under that kind of coercion. So I can see that. But in many other cases, you have these individuals who already have these disturbing aspects of their character present, and everybody around them knows it. Sometimes they are losers in life who want to find some way to exalt themselves or to feel empowered. Other times, they just have so much hate in their heart, they can't wait for an opportunity to unleash it on someone. Could be anyone. They'll find a cause. They'll find a purpose. They'll find an excuse. But it's always a matter of character. These things don't come out of the blue. One of these days, I pray that we have a serious discussion about our belief systems and the beliefs that keep us apart and put us at odds with one another. And that enhance the risk that we will do terrible things to each other. As opposed to heal each other, advance each other, ensure one another's survival. This life is tough enough. We face many threats, natural and otherwise. It's always a tenuous bid for survival. There will always be a virus ready to wipe us out, a plague ready to happen. I see we have a caller calling in. I'm going to go ahead and take this call. Good evening and welcome to Character Matters.
Yes, hello, Dr. Simon. I just want to comment, a phenomenal series tonight. But one thing could you comment on as I was listening is the breeding ground of this in the individual's family of origin. Because I kind of look back and I see so much of this starting at an early age for children. We're going 30, 40, 50 years back, where a lot of them were terrorized by their own parents, this type of mentality. Kind of bred to these children, or they learned the behavior within the origin of their families. Also, the way society also has more of a superficial society where it's all about things rather than human beings, about character, about their moral integrity. that type of thing. And I was just wondering if you could comment on that.
Well, thank you. Let me ask you to explain one thing a little bit more. When you talk about the superficial things, say a little bit more about that.
Well, I think rather than people talking today about, it's more about okay, we've got to have this great car, we've got to have this good thing, we've got to have the clothes, we've got to have this, instead of, you know what, it's about honesty, it's about decency,
Yeah.
it's about giving to another individual that doesn't have more than us. We don't need 20 different, say, skirts or blouses. I mean, 3 would do all right.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than looking at somebody that doesn't have even one. You look at third world countries, you look around the globe, how much we have. And, I mean, we have the goodwills, we have all of these things, but we are so demoralized in this country as far as our values are concerned, even with our own values as far as how we represent ourselves as a human being.
Yes.
And just kind of looking at it in that respect.
Thank you so much. Yes, it's a great question, and I'll do my best to address it. Thank you very much. That's a great question. One of the things I was thinking to myself just today as I went to my own church this morning is that, there are these rituals that we go through, these external actions that we go through. They're not at the core of what any of our faiths are meant to be. We can go through these rituals. We can attend our services, participate in our activities. But then if we go home, go our merry ways, and we resume our lives of materialism, greed, insensitivity to others, etc., we miss the whole point. And I think what we're seeing here in the world today, we're seeing just like we're doing with the earth. You abuse things a certain way for long enough in nature, and then nature starts to bite back. It starts to fight back. Symptoms show up. Symptoms of the ill health that we've created. And the same thing is happening on the world stage. We are seeing the symptoms. We are seeing the symptoms of a very divided and unnecessarily ruthless and competitive world where we have placed so many priorities ahead of human welfare. Our priorities are so out of whack. And we don't realize until it's too late how illusionary this idea is that that we can build all these ivory castles and have our wealth and have our gated communities and that we can be safe. This is not buying us safety. As long as there is so much injustice, as long as there is so much insensitivity, none of us are safe.
Yes, I do agree with that. I agree with that. And I think we're going to see a lot more of what's happening until we make some conscious decisions to start taking care of people, especially, I guess, when they were talking about a one world order, that we're all a one world community. We can't ignore our fellow man that's lying in the street dying and has nothing to eat when we've got so much abundance here. I truthfully don't know how things like that will come about when we have people in power that all they're worried about is money, about power, and they really don't care about people.
Yeah, I'm a little leery. I'm more than a little leery, actually, about any kind of one world order because, when power tends to collect, and governing entities tend to become too big, oppression is inevitable in those circumstances. I do think that the age of nations is not yet past, and I do think a little bit of healthy competition between nations is very good for the human condition. I'm talking about benign confrontation. We need to have competition in the arena of ideas, for example, and we need to preserve our freedom to discuss those ideas. I don't think anybody has a lock on the truth.
I agree with that, but it seems like they're forcing it down our throats rather than asking us.
That's the issue. Yes, that's exactly the issue. This is the point I was making earlier in the program. It is not a matter of one's convictions. It is a matter of that sense of entitlement to shove those opinions and values down everybody else's throat, and that sense of superiority that says everyone will conform to my way of doing things or else. That's at the heart of it. And that narcissism is a character issue. And you were asking the question earlier about how this is fostered in families. These traits, these nefarious character traits, don't come out of nowhere. They start early, and they're evident early.
I agree with that. I've got family members, and I'm one of the older ones, and I can see where the younger ones, where that trait came from. I can see that.
Yeah, these attitudes of intolerance, of bigotry, injustice, they have their origins in our formative years. And we used to think, of course, that they only arose if people experienced adverse circumstances in their rearing. In other words, we used to think that people were just born okay, but if they had enough trauma, enough neglect, enough abuse that jaded them, they became untrusting, they became hateful, and therefore they developed these bad aspects of character. We now know that while that is sometimes true, it is by no means always the truth. We now realize, and in my work I have long realized, that we are not born civilized. We're the only creatures on the planet that take years and years, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for many, many, many years to civilize, to become socialized, to become adequately aware and conscientious about our role in the world and our impact on it and our relationship with our fellow human beings. We're the only creatures on the planet that take that long to groom in a healthy way. And difficulties in this character formation process show up early, and they have to be confronted. Somebody somewhere always knows one of these potential loose cannons and what makes them such a potential loose cannon. And it's about reaching them in time and reaching them in the right way. We can't do what they do. We can't, in a sense of entitlement, shove our values down their throat or threaten them or terrorize them. That isn't going to work. We have to reach their hearts.
Well, I would agree with that, but some of them, it seems their hearts are so hardened, it's hard to reach any of them the way that they're getting to be. Yeah. There's so many, what you're talking about, people that are narcissistic personality disorder, and once they cross over to being the malignant style narcissist, how do you even get through to them?
It's a real challenge, I will tell you. And you know, I've spent my career dealing with these severely disordered character types, and it is, no doubt, the challenge of a lifetime. But I have found, and that's why I've stayed in the business so long, I have found that with enough persistence and with enough benign, and that's the key, it has to be loving confrontation of these character traits, that movement is possible. But you have to have the courage and the conviction and also the tenderness and compassion of heart to challenge a person's distorted beliefs in a way that they can only perceive as loving but unwavering. It's a kind of tough love, so to speak.
I understand that, but someone that doesn't display love at all or has a comprehension of love, how do you even get that across? And also, don't you maybe even make them a little bit smarter and harder?
You can't make that happen. That, what's going to happen in their heart is going to happen in their heart. It's not a matter of you causing it. You can only do what you can do. The rest is not up to you. But it's still incumbent upon us to confront the issue head on. We have a lot of hearts out there that need converting and about a lot of issues. Yeah.
That's why I'm asking. You have people in your family, and what do? You watch them destroy their lives and where they're going, and you want to do something to help, but your hands are almost tied in doing anything.
Well, they're not as tied as we make them sometimes. It's all in the manner. And people have to change on their own timetable, too. We can't make it happen. It certainly doesn't happen overnight. But we can always step up, and we can always basically demonstrate the love. And whether it's received or not, we don't have any power over, but we always have the potential to do it.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Simon. Just excellent program. I wish they would interview you on TV and maybe give you some of the airtime so you could speak some of these things to the people.
Well, thank you. It's a wonderful suggestion. I'll give it some serious thought, and perhaps we'll craft or dedicate a good portion of another program to that very topic.
Well, that would be great. Thank you, Dr. Simon.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Well, here we are coming close to the end of the hour tonight, and so I just, really kind of tonight has been a little disjointed, perhaps, but my heart really is aching tonight. I'm getting so weary of seeing so many of the things that I'm seeing and hearing, not just on television, but every day. Our society is pretty ill, and we haven't come to terms with that yet. And it's ill because we have truly forgotten this social world that we live in, and that everything we do impacts someone or something else. No person is an island. Everything we do or fail to do has an impact. Let's remember that and do our best to be a part of the solution instead of a part of the problem. That's the first commandment of character. Visit the other ones on my website, if you will, at manipulative-people.com, and join me again next week at the same time for another edition of Character Matters. I'm Dr. George Simon. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week.